first of all, my understanding, this is the review, right? Did she tell you that you would have different disease processes in this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so you'll have different disease processes that you have to choose, at least one from this one, at least one from this one. But you can choose 2 of these and 1 of this, or 2 of these and 1 of these, right? Okay. So the biggest thing before you start anything is choosing what you're going to do. You want to choose 3 different disease processes that have some kind of relationship to them, okay? Because that's going to help your links at the end. The relationships don't have to be huge, and you can see how she used burgers, chronic bronchitis, and what else? She didn't put the other one. So it'd be something else that has some kind of respiratory problem, okay? So when I look at this list, when I think of things that aren't related at all, I'm going to think CHF, emphysema, and a gastric ulcer. Like they're all kind of completely different. Does that make sense? How you want to choose things? And we'll do one. We'll put together what she's got here. Okay? So you want to choose your disease process. So that's the first thing. Choose 3 of the following concepts. So when you organize your board, to avoid the spaghetti, to avoid the crazy, you're going to, and I'm going to color code this to help you guys out. Your concept, I want to make sure you can see right. You're going to put your 3 concepts, and you're going to start about a 1/3 way down the paper. And you're going to be working off of 3 columns. Okay? So let's choose, let's choose peripheral vascular disease, which I'm going to put as PVD.
Diabetes.
Yeah, we'll do diabetes type 2 and cellulitis. Okay?
To specify location.
A lower leg. Okay? Okay? So those are your concepts.
Yeah.
So that is
Vascular disease.
your concepts. That would be your C's. She doesn't specify those on here. If you see that, she's just put them in a box. She hasn't done that. The P is your patho. The P are the specific steps, which is the next thing. She does next identify 4 risks or contributing factors. And whenever you want to think about your diagrams, you want to think about your concepts being midway down the paper because they come after a risk factor. So your risk factor should be above. Keep your risk factors up here. So you're going to have a risk factor. I wanted to color code this. Risk factor 1. So what's a risk factor for PVD? We're going to say smoking. Okay? What's a risk factor for diabetes? Obesity. Just because you guys know diabetes well, what's another risk factor for diabetes? Risk factor means what causes it.
Age.
Age. What's a risk factor for cellulitis?
Is that inflammation of like cellulite?
No, it is no. Good question, but no. Cellulitis is actually an infection of surrounding tissue related to poor perfusion. It's like an infection of tissue, and it often comes from the bloodstream.
Infection of tissue in a specific.
So we're gonna say. I'm going to say, in this one, a risk factor would be immunosuppressed. I don't think that's how you spell it, suppressed.
Could cardiovascular be a risk factor for cellulitis?
Yes, that could be one too, would be poor perfusion.
Yeah.
We're going to go there.
Okay.
So, another one which I cannot count, is smoking. And we're going to write it there, but we're not going to label it risk factor 5. Merely because it's already labeled, it already is identified as one of the risk factors. But that is in the future going to be a link. Okay? So smoking is a risk factor for cellulitis. Does that make sense? But we're going to talk about, because that's what it means by identify 4 risk or contributing factors, at least 1 per concept, label, label, label. And then, she said it somewhere else. Remember, only to count entries once is what she said on number 6, but we'll get there. So I'm putting that there for future reference, okay? Now it says, identify the complete description of Patho for each concept, which this is the part you guys have done before, okay? You've done the Patho for PVD. The disease process, oops. So for PVD, we had the disease process, and we said the definition of PVD would be, let's just say, for peripheral diffusion, or perfusion. For peripheral.
This is the pathology.
I'm making it up in my head. So that's what it is, for peripheral perfusion. Actually, that should be our,
That should be the end.
that should be an N, sorry. Way down here. For perfusion. So we're going to say, for PVD, we're going to say increase lipids in blood. Then we're going to say atherosclerosis in peripheral veins. And then we're going to say blockage of blood flow. I'm just making this up.
These are like the pathology steps?
Yeah. And then that would be peripheral perfusion. So that's going to be P1, P2, P3, P4. If you color code, it really helps. So bring colored pencils if that is your way. Okay? I'm not going to go through all the Patho ones. You guys can look those up. But that'd be the same thing. I will do cellulitis just because I'm going to show you something. Cellulitis, I'm going to say bacteria enters tissue. Let me put first. Let me start with portal of entry. Sorry, guys.
Okay.
Wait till I'm done. Portal of entry. So I'm doing off the fly. Portal of entry. And up here, maybe I could put for risk factor. I could put. This happens a lot. It could be a bug bite. That's my risk factor, that the bug bite happened. Does that make sense? I was kind of thinking that, but it wouldn't be really the case. So, portal of entry. So your bug bite is a risk factor. Portal of entry, and then I'm going to say bacteria enters tissue, inflammation, and that's almost it for there. There could be a lot of stuff, but we're going to go there next. And then you'd have your, so that'd be P1, P2, P3. And then you'd have each one for diabetes. Okay? So after you do that, in your line, can you see this, Alicia? Can you see the board? Merely because of light? Okay. And then, so, I have another color. See if I have another color beside yellow.
I don't think she could.
Oh, well. Oops. Good thing you did. So for yellow, I'm going to do signs and symptoms, okay? So after you know the Patho, now this is an additional step, because you guys haven't done this before. It says, number 3, identify a complete description of Patho for each concept. Number 4, identify 6 symptoms or manifestations that can include lab or findings, at least 1 per concept. So if you think 2 symptoms per disease process, that could be anything from I'm gonna sit down so you guys can see. So what's a symptom of poor perfusion for PVD? What's that patient's leg gonna look like? Okay. Oh, Jesus, sorry. I can't stand that sound. Let me think for a second. PVD. Yeah, let's see if we can do this. Oh, I can't do that. We're going back to black. The cyanosis for PVD.
Looks like be no oxygen.
Yeah, it wouldn't be because it's vast. It's it would be if it was arterial, but this is venous. So it's gonna be
necrotic?
no, it would be brown. We'll just put discoloration. It's like a brown discoloration. Skin. Okay. It could be tingling. Or we'll put numbness. I like numbness better because I'm going to tie that in somewhere else. Okay. So that's S1, S2. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So diabetes. What's a symptom of diabetes?
Infection.
Fatigue.
What did you say, Brad?
Fatigue.
Fatigue. And I'm going to put numbness, tingling of leg or of periphery. That makes sense? Mm-hmm. So it's S. You can see how this can quickly become, you can figure out your symptoms quick. There's tons. It could even be increased white blood count on a lab. It could be blood pressure is elevated. Those things count as symptoms, whatever you can observe. Okay, lab findings, vital signs, that's what she's saying on number 4. Include lab findings, labs or findings, at least one per concept. So that can be that's a broad range of symptoms, okay? And you just have to label them. So now I'm going to tell you some symptoms of cellulitis would be redness. It's going to be tingling. Okay? So now I've done everything that I need to do as far as filling out my paper. Next, on number 5, make 5 connections between all sections. Label as an X. Now, Dr. Katz, on her example, she did not rewrite them twice. See how I wrote numbness of leg, numbness and tingling? I wrote it 3 times. This is what made her circular. She did not rewrite it. So, like here, poor oxygenation leads to finger pallor. Complaint of numbness or finger pallor. This is the connection where this was the same for both. So it should be another box here. Because the way my mind works, I need to see the connection where they're the same. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. She merely drew a line and connected them to the same box.
Is she gonna care if we just do it like this?
No.
Okay.
She can read it better.
Okay.
So now, the way she thinks, I don't understand it.
It just makes it confusing when we look at it. We're like,
I know, right? So on here it says, make 5 connections between all sections. So you see how I could make redness, discoloration. I could make 1. I could make 2. I do want you to note that I can't say numbness of leg, tingling and numbness of leg, and this is 1, and this numbness, and this is 2. That only counts for 1. Okay? So she doesn't want you to make all your connections in the symptoms. She wants you to connect through all the different sections. So, smoking is a connection. That's X1. Okay? My PVD, this is going to be, I need inflammation somewhere. Cellulitis, there will be inflammation. I could put another one here, and I could say poor perfusion. That's where I was going with that. To extremity. So now that patho will tie with the poor perfusion of leg here. So this would be
But does it?
X2.
So it doesn't have to go through diabetes as well? Okay.
Only one. It only has to. You could make a circle if you didn't want it to go through diabetes, but since I didn't write anything there, I just went there.
Okay.
And so say. So then I could make so it's X2. So now we're gonna say this numbness and tingling of the periphery. I'm gonna put over here. Tingling of the periphery. X3. Discoloration of skin and redness. That's one. X4. If I had the diabetes thing in there, somewhere I would have inflammation, maybe. Nope, that's if it went to atherosclerosis. So I need one more.
You have inflammation with diabetes.
Yeah, but that's further down the line. Depends on how detailed you get in your patho. And you can make your patho long. It doesn't have to just be 3 steps. So you could put the inflammation in there and tie that together and have your 5th link. Honestly, the easiest parts to make your links are in your symptoms and risk factors. So really,
Risk factors.
I could probably put another one here and put age. And that could be my X5. Does that make sense? How this doesn't have to be complicated. Just work in columns. Make this one, make this one, make this one, and then take a step back and see how you can connect them.
And would you like write it out first, like on a piece of paper, like your ideas?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're not entirely sure that you're going to have enough connections, yeah.
Okay.
If you have time.
Okay.
How many of those do we have to do?
Just one.
Oh.
Yeah, it's really not that bad.
Oh my gosh.
It's really not. I think she makes it more hard. So, in the end, you want to, see on number 6, make sure in the end you have 3 concepts. So when you're done, you're going to go, I have 3 concepts, 1, 2, and 3. I have 4 risk factors labeled. Risk 1, risk 2, risk 3, risk 4, risk 5. I have 5. Woo. Complete patho with the P's. I've labeled all my patho, P1, P2, P3, P4. And then 6 symptoms. I've got S1, S2, S3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I got plenty of symptoms. So I'm just checking off. And 5 connections labeled X1 through X5. I've got, where'd my X1 go? Up here. X1, X2, X3, X4, X5. And does it make sense if you color code it? You can really pick them out quick.
And we're allowed to keep the connections like within the groups of themselves? Like keeping connections and okay.
Yeah. And if you can, like she said earlier, you could, that was a good one. We could say, you could do, that was a good point. Let's do, what do you think this? I feel like cellulitis, a risk factor for cellulitis, may be atherosclerosis. I'm not entirely sure. But if that did I can't even spell it right. If that is true, that is a, where'd it go? Here. That could be a connection where you cross sections.
Okay.
Yeah, that is possible.
Can you say
Good
what
question.
cellulitis is one more time? I didn't get to write that down.
No. Only because I don't think I can give you a good book definition, and I don't want to mess you up.
Okay.
It's like inflammation of the surrounding tissue because of a bacteria that's entered into the tissue. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like when a leg gets real red and inflamed. I don't want to say it's exactly. It sometimes involves the blood vessels, but I don't know if it originates in the blood vessels or just the tissue.
Okay.
I don't want to mess up your patho. That's why I'm saying that.
No, you're good.
That makes sense. Does that make a lot more sense than what you saw in class? Does that help you, Alicia? Does it help you? No? Well, you come talk to me and we'll figure it out.
So we can leave it written like this, or do we have to rewrite it circular?
No, you can write it like this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, she let us use color-coded
Absolutely.
pencils.
She loves it. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, when you make the connections, like hers,
Mm-hmm.
she did like smoking to chronic bronchitis. Do we have to like do like you did it? You were like smoking to smoking?
Okay.
That's
Look at
what
her
I'm
line.
confused.
Sure. Look at here. She has one line going from smoking to chronic bronchitis saying that smoking is a risk factor for chronic bronchitis. She also is saying smoking is a risk factor for burgers.
Mm-hmm.
She wrote it one time to avoid having to type it out twice.
Oh, okay.
That drives me crazy. make the connection between the two boxes.
Oh, okay. Now I
That's
get
what
that one.
you did.
Yeah. Because I'm too linear. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you went like straight down. She's like boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, I want to
I
go
looked
to
at
the
that, I
left.
was like,
Yeah.
If it's like two lines going
I
the
can't
same
write it like
thing,
that.
I think that's too
Everyone leaving
difficult
at 7:30.
to keep it straight.
That's how.
that's time to change my major when I saw that.
No.
Yeah.
So-
that's a good that's a good solution.
Yeah, I know.
What else was I gonna say about that? Oh, the biggest thing you want to make sure is that you only count your risk. If you write it out twice like that, you cannot count smoking for risk factor 1 and risk factor 2. You only get to count it one time if you read